Everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric on our long-running series, the Unported Playlist, where I take a look at some of my favorite unported arcade games of all time. Today we got a really fun episode for you guys. It is Judge Dredd from Midway in 1993. This is a prototype, it was not a release game, and it is both amusing and horrifying at the same time. Before we get too far involved, do me a huge favor, down below hit like, subscribe, that notification bell definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined to want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. Baby Goro's a member, are you? But all jokes aside, that was a small Goro on a leash being walked by a woman. Obviously, this being made by Midway, so there's a little bit of a Mortal Kombat connection right there. But right off the top, this game is not finished, so some of the jank in it is going to be because the code isn't done. Some of it's going to be probably bad design decisions. The story goes that this was apparently at least partially inspired by Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from Konami. Now it is a beat 'em up, so I guess it's the same genre. There is a sewer, even though there aren't any turtles. There's a large rat, maybe one of them is Splinter. But honestly, there really is no comparing TMNT, the arcade game, to Judge Dredd. But if we take it on its own, it is a hyper-amusing, completely janky, digitized sprite mess of a game that should have been released because I would have loved to see how this got finished. As far as the combat's concerned, I do not know if it's the engine or if it's the fact that it's not finished, but getting hits to connect upon your opponent can be very difficult. You need to line up practically perfectly. Now I've seen that same issue in beat 'em ups that have been completely finished, so it's hard to say if that was going to hold over for the rest of the game had it been released, or if this is just a preliminary problem just trying to hit Fink Angel here. If you are not basically at the exact right pixel, all your punches and all your kicks are going to miss. But therein lies the second thing about Judge Dredd, even though it's an amusing experience that makes no sense. Judge Dredd doesn't really beat that many people up. He is more of a gunfighter. So why is it in the first level they don't give Judge Dredd a gun? I think that's a big fundamental mistake. I get it's a licensed property, and maybe in the early 90s they were a little bit worried about those guns, but honestly it should have been something that was included from the start because that's kind of what he's known for. Now on the bright side of things, for 1993 this game looks great, and the futuristic city in the background looks legitimately good. They went the extra mile trying to make this game's backgrounds and art look as good as they could, maybe at the detriment to the diversity of enemies. That dude over there in the bowler hat is clearly wearing a very fake pregnancy stomach, but it is hilarious. He's not even really attacking that much. He's mostly just shimmying, undulating his crotch, and dancing around. Maybe that's what does it for him. I don't know, but it makes me laugh every time I see it. This kind of looks like the Jetsons mixed with Judge Dredd, that kind of like really bright futuristic city. And of course, because it is a beat 'em up, there's ever so slightly an elevator. Can't have a beat 'em up without an elevator, even if you only take it for about 2 seconds. But all jokes aside about elevators, I wish this game had been finished because it does show some sort of promise. Now the story goes that apparently this was sent out on location test in Chicago. I live here, and it was a big area for arcade games back in the 90s for distribution centers because Chicago's pretty centrally located. So a lot of prototypes of games like this ended up getting location tested in the city, and if they didn't hit with consumers, a lot of them were canceled, and supposedly that's what happened with Judge Dredd. People played it, they didn't really like it, and they never finished it. But I do love that billboard in the back, "Get ugly with Otto Sump, a face you can trust." It looks properly grim and like his face is melted off at the bottom, so I do absolutely love it. Now there are little intercut bonus stages as well. We're going to report to the Hall of Justice. This is going to be basically a shooting practice session, which I kind of wish they'd carried over into actual gameplay levels so you could shoot bad guys in the background. But the game does have a soundtrack, and I have absolutely no idea if it is finished or not. It's decent but not great, but go ahead and listen for like 45 seconds to Judge Dredd, and I'll come back and talk more about the history of why this game was cancelled and whether or not it should have been. Music's kind of interesting. Enjoy? Question mark?
Robots, cease and desist, metal miscreant.
I mean, it's a soundtrack and it kind of sounds like a B-tier budget release, but it's hard to say whether or not that soundtrack was actually going to be final, or if the developers had bigger plans in mind. But at least Judge Dredd's finally been given a weapon. It is really strange that it took to the third stage of the game for him to get one, and I'm really not sure why they made that as a design choice. Maybe if the game had been more like this, more like a beat 'em up, it would have had better success at testing, because like I said earlier, a lot of the developers reference Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as their inspiration for making this game. Now, it is a beat 'em up, so I guess you could look to that game for inspiration, but this game really isn't hitting any of those marks for me outside of being very colorful and has kind of a vibe when it comes to the art. But the fighting mechanics are nowhere near as good as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The level design is definitely not as good either, so if you're using that game as reference material, maybe that's why this game gets canceled, because you're realizing you're coming up short from that. But that is a very lofty goal to set yourself to. But Precious Leg Lock here, what a name, is hilarious. I love to use a robot and bolts shoot out of his chest when you kill him, versus all the enemies so far who shoot out blood, because he's a machine, he is not organic. But you get another one of these training sessions, and I really do think the best thing for them to have done would have been to incorporate this into the main game in and of itself, because you have to shoot these holograms, and it is relatively interesting, but I could imagine Judge Dredd turning towards the background in a gameplay stage as opponents came towards him and you had to shoot him down, kind of bringing more of that gunplay into the game in and of itself. I think it would have been a really nice look. But these holograms look good, they've got good transparencies, and the digitized sprites do work really well. But of course, Midway with Mortal Kombat had a lot of experience with digitized sprites, so it's really not that interesting that they did such a good job. They had all the experience in the world of doing it. Look at those silhouettes in the background though. Do they remind you of anything? Leave me a comment down below, because I see what I see. All jokes aside about that, moving on to the next level, this is where the game just basically grinds to an unfortunate halt. We're going to have to play city defense on a block warfare, and you're going to see in just a moment there's two sides of the screen, and it gives you the controls every single time you start a level. I feel like by level 1 you would have understood that, but hey, it is what it is. But we need to make sure that we can last for the next 3 minutes in this stage. If either of the warring factions get too close and destroy the tower, that's going to be a problem, and you'll see that we have a critical or safe bar on both sides of the screen. And the only problem with this is it lasts a really long time, and it is near impossible to actually get through it. I've done it maybe once out of 10 times I've ever tried, and for this capture I just could not manage it that day. So the game definitely has some balancing issues. I don't know if this game was final as far as design was concerned and they were just kind of fixing up some code, or if they were going to work on some of those balancing issues in and of themselves. If this lasted 2 minutes, I could beat it almost every single time. It really is that final minute in which things become very hairy, and you can see here I'm running out of that life bar on both sides. If one side gets to 0, you have to redo the entire level again. You don't get to continue. But at least we're getting that good gunplay. Judge Dredd can move in all 4 directions. He can go into the foreground and the background. He can shoot up, down, left, and right. Had they started the game like this and not made the first 2 levels a pure beat 'em up without any real weapons, I think that would have been a lot better of a design decision for them. And I think that's where Midway made the mistake. I could see this on location testing. People will get bored after the second level of subpar beat 'em up action and probably just walk away. Who knows how many testers actually even got to this point in the game. But you'll see we're almost at that 2 minute mark, 2 minutes have elapsed, and that right hand side, Coleman Tower, is just running out of life, and they fire. And once that happens, you have to redo the entire level over again, and let me tell you, it is near impossible to complete. But this is a very interesting game. I love talking about prototypes on the channel, and I love showing you guys what never actually came out in arcades. So leave me a comment down below. Is this the type of thing that you would have played back in the day? Or can you kind of see around the edges of the jank and realize that maybe this was better being cancelled? Short of that, I will have another video on imported playlists next Monday, and I'll have videos for the week as well. But Judge Dredd, it's a very interesting look at a historical game that just never actually came out, but I kind of wish it had to see the ending. Other than that, hope you guys enjoy. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.